Welcome to episode 12 of Goalie Resiliency. I'm Chris Dawson along with Dr. Rob Graham. We got a great guest who a lot of people know more as a hockey executive, but he came to North Bay as a goalie coach and assistant coach, and that is Adam Dennis. And so we got a lot of exciting stories. He played pro hockey, everyone, and you're going to find out about that. And Dr. Rob is going to steer around and talk some interesting goalie perspective on things.
And we're going to throw to that interview with Adam Dennis, President and Director of Hockey Operations. And we are scenically set here in Battalion World with the Goalie Resiliency sign right behind us. So let's throw to that really, really cool interview with Adam right now.
All right, welcome to, we're on the road a little bit at North Bay Memorial Gardens, but Adam Dennis, you guys made us feel at home with the Goalie Resiliency logo over top. Welcome to Goalie Resiliency, even though you haven't left your own office.
Hey, long time coming. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could finally link up.
Awesome. Adam Dennis, as everybody knows in North Bay, knows you as a executive, former general manager of the battalion, director of operations, and president now. But you had quite the interesting career as a goaltender, going all the way up to professional hockey. But let's start right from the beginning. How did Adam Dennis become a goaltender?
Yeah, probably the normal. I shouldn't even say normal anymore because I think it's changed. But back when I started playing, everybody had a rotation in net. No different than when you start, the first year of rep was coming up. I was a year away, but maybe thought we might have a chance, tried out for the year older, and they said, well, no, not quite as a player, but we saw you play net in your rotation, and lots of back and forth between my dad and I, and we came to an agreement that I could play half the games that player when I wasn't going to be starting that game. So it was the best of both worlds for me, and as you got a little bit higher up, you had to pick, and goalie was certainly the spot that I had more options on teams, so I went with that. And it's kind of, I think that starting point is basically what's. I think back now, and it's every move of my career has been something similar. I wanted to be a part of a team and in hockey, and whatever role that was, I'll do it. And it's been really cool to see where it's taken me.
We always throw this one out, and it's usually kind of an interesting anecdote, but what would you say your goalie resiliency turning point was when you said, I want to do something with playing goal?
It's probably then, to be honest. I wanted to be a hockey player first and foremost. Goalie gave me the most opportunities to climb the ladder, and I think that was something that really helped me as a goalie. I always tried to see it from not just the goalie perspective, from a player perspective, how it would look on the other side of a 2-on-1, things like that. So it was probably that moment, to be honest with you, where what do you want to do? Do you want to make the rep team? Well, here's your opportunity. So I took it, and I think that was probably the aha moment.
Fast forward into your teen years. Talk about getting to the OHL.
You know what? I can say that minor hockey went really well for me. I was on one of the winning teams every year, whether it was North York Canadians, now the Junior Canadians, the Toronto Marlies. I did spend a year with the Don Mills Flyers, but always had a lot of success, and adversity came with the OHL draft, to be honest. I thought I was going to be one of the first goalies taken. I got drafted in the 14th round. And it was a long day, definitely lots of ups and downs. And looking at it from the 16-year-old lens, and when you have expectations, it hurts. It's a big knock against the confidence. And from there, I wanted to play hockey, right? So I took any opportunity I could to get on the ice and tried to just find ways to better my game. And I think that it's paired into my whole career, just that mindset as a goalie. You got to try and find a way. And I'd say not getting drafted where I wanted. I went through the NHL draft twice without being drafted. I had some success though. So my second year in Guelph, we won an OHL championship. I played all the games in the playoffs except for maybe 2 or 3, and the other guy got picked, and then you go to London, we win the Memorial Cup at 19, was in the playoffs for the final game in the Memorial Cup, got a shutout. The other goalie signed. So I did finally get drafted that year, but I definitely would say it was the long route. But now, looking at my position now, I'm able to share my story, and the draft is a big milestone for a lot of our players. And when they don't go, it's how you react to it. I have a real story that you can get drafted later, keep working on your game, and thankfully there's a lot more recent stories of that have happened in-house that I don't have to use my story anymore. But your podcast, the name says it all. If you want to be a goalie, you better be resilient.
Absolutely. And some of the players that you got to play against and to win a Memorial Cup, like we've talked to Kenny Appleby, he beat Connor McDavid in the OHL Championship, then beat Leon Draisaitl in the Memorial Cup. I'm going to say Sidney Crosby might be above both those right now, but the fact to be able to beat him and win a Memorial Cup, how special was that? Seeing how great he is, and actually, there's a player that your kids can relate to, and you can tell them, when I was a kid, in my late teens, I beat Sidney Crosby, and they can say, "Wow, Dad did that," right?
Yeah, and you know what? Well, I'll go a year before Shea Weber. We played in Kelowna the year before, but that whole London Memorial Cup, it was really the perfect storm. And it's something I try to tell the players now. They have no idea what it's going to turn into 20 years later, but I remember going to high school in Guelph, and Dustin Brown and Dan Paye were both in my class. Ryan Callahan was in my class. Kevin Klein, I had no idea that two of the three of them would be captains in the NHL. They would all have a Stanley Cup, and it's special. It really is. But back then they were friends. We were trying to do something special in the OHL together, and I've been very fortunate to play on some great teams. I think that's shaped me as a manager, because I think you get to learn a lot from those teams and what makes those great players tick. But yeah, right from Dustin Brown, Marty St. Pierre, Dan Pye, Kevin Klein, Cam Jansen's another one. Then you go to London where it was Corey Perry, Dave Boland. The list goes on and on. Like Dan Girardi's another one who, we were playing Sidney Crosby. I had Mark Mathot and Dan Girardi, Dan Savret, Brian Rodney. They all played NHL games, so we had a pretty good team in front of us. And that year, though, Dan Fritchie came back from the NHL. I don't know that Corey Perry's in the league at that time. Rob Schremp was an NHLer, and they were all signed players. So would we have gotten them all? Who knows, but certainly grateful that we did, and I was there.
Take advantage of the opportunity. So you go to Buffalo, and actually there are a couple of funny Buffalo stories. First of all, you were a hockey card nut as a kid, and you got your own hockey card. What happens? they put another goalie on your rookie card. So you go down in history among some of the great error hockey cards, I guess.
Yeah, and if I hadn't lived on a goalie, I might have taken it differently. But they made it memorable, right? And it's my card may not have had as much value if it wasn't a misprint. So luckily, the goalie that they put with my name and all my stats on the back is a really good person and a good friend, so I'm happy to share the card with him. But it's a great story, and certainly I was very excited when you get a card. Upper Deck, they will speak to your representation, and back then, it was something like $2 per autograph that you'd sign. So you'd sign all these little boxes, and they'd put them on specialty cards. So I remember coming down to the lobby and signing about 3,000 different little cards, and then, hey, thanks for signing. Here's your box. Here's your first card. And I just opened it, and I was speechless, and I don't know that I really had much to say to them other than it's not me. And he just wanted to get out of there, I feel.
So there's some goalie resiliency. You saying you had to be resilient not to say, what did you do?
Yeah, there's too many people watching.
Absolutely.
But no, it's. I think we still might have 200-300 of the cards at my parents' house, and we don't give them out easily. But it's a great story. You brought a lot of light to the story when you put it in the Bay today, so I appreciate you for that. But one of my cool memories as a hockey player.
Now it's funny how paths taken. Obviously, I wasn't on the ice, but one of your only NHL games. I actually was part of a pre-game ceremony. You played in the Roberval game for Buffalo versus the Canadiens in what a weird rink that was to play. I don't think they allow that anymore, a rink that small to play an NHL game, but how small was that rink? Like I remember talking to Gary Green, and he almost could drop the puck at center ice sitting from his vantage point as the play-by-play man. It was a tiny rink.
Well, it's funny because like I think it was you that I was able for me to piece together where it actually was, because like I had never heard of the town that we played in before. I was just happy that I was going to get in the net.
Everybody that in the Saguenay was where Roberval was. So
and I remember the crowd for the pregame skate was almost the same as the game, and it was a great memory. It was the only preseason game that I got into. I backed up 4 regular seasons games with the Sabres, but it was really my only game action with the organization, and yeah, clean sheet. So it was perfect in Buffalo, I guess.
Obviously, battling through hockey, you had to make some choices. You have some connections in Italy with your mom's side of the family. So you took the decision to leave pro hockey in North America and pursue it in Italy first, and then you moved around. But tell me about making that decision.
Yeah, it was, again, decisions, they kind of make themselves sometimes for you, but you signed an entry-level contract with Buffalo, had some success. My third year of my contract, they had a goalie named Jonas Enroth, who was a young up-and-coming guy, and we were kind of going back and forth. I'd play 2, he'd play 2, and then in December, I had been battling. I went through everything with my hip. We thought it was a groin issue for a year and a half. They even went as far as putting lifts in one of my shoes because they thought I had one leg shorter than the other. So finally, when we got the proper imaging, found out that there was a hip tear, and my season was over at that point in December. And when it's the end of a contract and Buffalo did not qualify me, I found out on the Sportsnet ticker that I wasn't qualified when I was slung up on my hip stuff.
Man.
And started to get back in shape and look at options. Longtime family friend of my parents, went to high school actually, is Rick Cornacchia. So he would have coached Eric Lindros with the Oshawa Generals, but at the time was Team Italy's national coach. So there was some offers in North America. I remember the one specifically would have been in Manchester as an American League deal, but they had Jonathan Quick, and they just drafted Jonathan Bernier was the 5th overall pick. So they needed space. I'm like, I see the East Coast in my future, and got in touch with Rick. He quickly connected with all the club teams. Steve Sterling was the coach in HC FASA, who, Steve was with the New York Islanders a couple years earlier. So I was very excited to have somebody of that pedigree, and I jumped at the opportunity. I knew I could get my passport, so the national team was a real option, and I'm so glad I did it, to be honest. The friends that I made over there, the life experience, the national team experience as well. I'm thrilled that a couple of our alumni have been able to follow in that footsteps. I know Jake Smith and Luke Moncada have both been in Asiago for a couple years now, and I'm really enjoying their time there because it's a beautiful country, and they do have a passion for hockey. It's not as big as it is here, obviously. In fact, it's probably their 4th sport. I think it would go soccer, basketball, then volleyball. Then maybe you're in the hockey world with a couple others. But it was eye-opening for me, really brought the love of the game. And like I said, you appreciate things. Like we had 12 or 13 import players that we were there to play hockey. We were taking up most of the budget. But then there was local players that had jobs throughout the day. So we didn't practice till 6:30. Third line center who had the franchise record was the mailman in town. So he didn't understand why I called him Carl Malone as the mailman, but
yeah, exactly.
He had a full day's work before practice, and he always came with a lot of energy.
Wow. So another injury shortened your journey in Europe, which also took you to beautiful city in Germany, in Cologne too.
Yeah.
But tell me about how all this experience, the challenges, learning to be resilient, got you prepared to take on life as a executive in the OHL?
I think when you have good intentions, you want to win, you want to contribute to a team, you find ways to add to your repertoire. I never really intended anything other than to stay in hockey. I always felt like that I was more of a big picture thinker than and I coached before, you forget. Like I've been on the bench, and that was a horrifying experience for me. I prefer the more planning phases and not as fast paced. I feel that's more my strength, but it was an important avenue. I feel like every step in my journey I've learned a lot. Even, the back half, I negotiated my last 3 or 4 contracts. So once you do that, you get a lot more confidence going into it and seeing how real life agents operate. And then when you're negotiating with managers on your own behalf, you learn a lot. And then, I'm big in keeping in contact with a lot of people that have added to my career and have been close. And you share stories. I think hockey's very tight knit, and it's a lot of pirating and stealing ideas and making them your own. And it's
imitation is the finest form of flattery, though, Adam Dennis.
100%. So I've been happy that I've been able to survive in the industry, and it's taken me a lot of cool places. But I don't say that there's a cap on it. I'm looking forward to learning more, and this year has certainly been a lot. But the hockey's my passion. That's why the roles, it's changed this year, but the one thing that's always been a constant is I'm not going to give up my input in the hockey. And luckily, John and Ryan, they want it from time to time, and we've had a great team that I think I said it when it first happened, that's our biggest strength is we're really good friends. It's a dream to run a hockey team, and the more responsibility, the more you feel like it's becoming part of your own, and we don't take that lightly, and we want to make it the whole cities, and it's been a lot of fun getting the people in the community on our side.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to steer our fans in a different direction. In the next segment, you're going to have to get grilled by Dr. Rob Graham, so we'll be back in a second with Dr. Rob and Adam Dennis.
Chris, you never cease to amaze when it comes to digging up really interesting facts. But as I was sitting there and watching that interview with Adam, and you recounting that hockey card story, I could almost still feel the pain in Adam when you were
opened up that box. When he
Yeah.
opened up that box to look at the card, and then can you imagine what he was thinking? But to say that that's not me.
And then being at his age and stage in his hockey career, how do you react to
When
that?
you're trying to make a team, right? And then all of a sudden the hockey card for you, NHL hockey card is not even a picture of you. It's a crazy story, but you get a chance, and you love to talk to people like Adam about goaltending, and I know you didn't dig deep really about the VH and that technical stuff, but a really great interview here with Dr. Rob and Adam about the technical side, and something about a guy who's done a pretty good job of scouting and bringing in some pretty darn good goalies to the North Bay Battalion organization.
Well, just an honor to be here with Adam Dennis. We're actually sitting right here in your kitchen, right at home. We have the Goalie Resiliency sign behind us. We have the Zamboni just coming off after the battalion practice. Thanks so much for joining us here, Adam.
Thanks for having me. Nice clean sheet coming up too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to your interview with Chris. Chris does the kind of historical, the journey part of the podcast. And now we're going to dial in, I think, on the development part. And I don't know if you remember a couple years ago at Twigs, you and I had a conversation, and we were talking about, hands on the steering wheel for goalies as kind of a metaphor for where we wanted hand placement. Well, I just wanted to let you know that I actually took this off of an old tractor, and I've used it for years with my goalies to kind of get them to do some of their skating. So let's kind of delve into that whole notion of development. So Adam Dennis, the goaltender, what do you see in hindsight as some of the keys to your development? Because you really did have quite a career as a goalie, as Chris outlined. So what do you see as hallmarks of your development as a goalie?
I mean, for me personally, I felt that, even learning in the last couple of years of my career that have added to my job now, but I got so many different perspectives. Starting goalie, backup goalie, goalie in the big city. I understand now when there's not as many nets in a smaller town and community. I experienced it all, and I wanted to succeed regardless of the environment. So I think when you have that mindset, you find a way. And you know, when you have the different perspectives, I think that you have insight that others don't. You know, I always say it when we're talking about junior hockey players, they don't appreciate experience the way that you and I would after, you know, twice as many years on this planet, 3 times as many years as their young guys too. You have that many more times to do things twice, 3 times, and anything you do in life, it's easier the second time you do it, right? They don't necessarily value that, but as you get older, you do start to appreciate experience and you start to value it more. So I try to add to my understanding of the game, but I also appreciate the perspective of what the 16-year-old has. So I know that my message always going to get through, and I got to try a lot of different avenues, but perspective is everything for me.
Yeah, and I love that because, as you know, you've heard me say many times, and the athletes I work with, I always talk about chase the experience, don't chase the dream. And that experience is coming to the rink, valuing your time with your teammates and the process of getting better. Do you consider yourself, because this is a question I like to ask my goalies, you know, do you think that you are an individual who kind of was innately blessed with the goalie mindset, or do you think that was something that was sculpted through your experiences?
I think I'm stubborn. I think I really liked hockey, and I was stubborn that I was going to find a way in this game for myself. And goalie was the first inland. But I mean, like, I don't sit still very well either. Like, I like to do things. I like a shark, you sink or swim, and I like to keep moving. So I try to find ways to improve myself. And yeah, I think that's very helpful for a goalie, but I think when I quantified it, I started reading a lot more for pleasure. I didn't like reading when I was told to do it. But I remember reading Chris Hadfield's book, and the thing is the astronaut's mindset, to be honest. Like, there's so many things that could go wrong in space, but the panic does not help your process. It's breaking down things into small parts and solving problems. And you know, when you can solve problems, you can get through a lot of things. And it's that process that I think goalies need, because things happen quick, mistakes happen, but the longer you're in the panic, the quicker you are to another goal against. That is your fault, you know. So it's yeah, I like that mindset, and when I want something, you know, I'll try a lot of different ways to get it too.
I really like that kind of astronaut mindset. You know, when I started out as a goalie, nobody ever told me I'd be scored on, and I don't think I was blessed with that mindset. And so I think that's kind of driven a lot of what I'm doing right now with the mental side of the game with goalies. So under your tenure here in North Bay, there's been some really great goaltenders, you know, from Joe Verbetek, Dom, and most recently Mike McIver. What do you see your role now as kind of the upper management president? Like, how connected are you to that development process, and how integral or how much are you involved in that development process with your goalies here?
I mean, I don't think, I'm not the first voice they hear. We have a relationship in all aspects of our world that, like, if I see something, I will first always talk to our coaches, so there's no mixed messaging. But I'll talk to goalies if I see something, and because, you know, sometimes I can explain it rather than passing it to somebody that would pass it to here. But Nate and Mav both do a great job with our guys. I've been lucky enough to be in the field and help identify goalies. Charlie Abbott is a great help, and some of our scouts are brave enough to put reports in on goalies. A lot of them are a little bit nervous to do so, but it's an area that we feel confident that we can cultivate. I don't necessarily key in on one specific style, but more the programming. Like, I remember as a young goalie that I sat 13 or 14 games, and you know, when you don't play, that's almost a month and a half. Your next start, it's your first start in a long time, so you know, you can't build off your last start because you forget it, you know. So how did I feel in warm-up? What did I eat? You know, you're just praying that the first shot's going to hit you in the logo, so you can remind yourself what the puck feels like and introduce yourself to the ref. But it's you know, I think that yeah, like Ryan's been great, and you know, again, trusting in different ways. Like he picks who starts the goalie, but he asks a lot of questions. Just like when I'm drafting a player, I would ask him, and Johnny, we would all consult together. But we really feel that one of the biggest perks of our program is that if you're a young goalie, you're going to play, and it's going to be with some regularity. Like if you've noticed our second goalie, and we've had some good goalies, but they've never sat for more than 7 to 10 days. Lots of instruction. They lift. They do all the same things as other players. There's no exceptions because they're a goalie. They just play a different position, but they're held accountable like every other player. So I think when they're included in the program like that, you're able to, take some of the anxieties away. Like I used to hate being told if I'm starting on the game day. I'd have to scramble to see if my parents were coming to the game. All these things. We're trying to take one less stressor out, but also at the same time remind them that if your next coach tells you when you're starting at 2:00 in the afternoon, it's up to you to adapt to that, not him. We've made it easy, but I think it's why some of our goalies have been able to have success at a young age.
I think it is absolutely no coincidence that we've had some incredible goalies under your tenure. Is attributed just to what you said, your experience as a goalie. I can just hear that, how that perspective, no doubt, has translated into some of the success. So that's really cool. So, and of course, I was just watching the practice here. Nate McDonald was in his Cornell red. I had this goalie waving to me, and I didn't know who it was. So Nate actually suited up, and that's really cool too. So.
Still can play.
Oh, he can still play. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've enjoyed.
Edit that part out of the podcast.
Yeah.
Don't let him hear it.
No, we won't. So, if you could have one piece of equipment from today's goalie, going back to when you played, and it wasn't that long ago, but if there was one piece of current contemporary goal equipment that you could take back in time to you in your time, what would it be?
I don't know. Like. Dom used to really enjoy his skates. I thought they looked embarrassing. They're like ski boots. So, I did like some of the, there's a lot of the skates now with the no cowling. I had the big plastic cowlings when I played. They got smaller, but I feel like that would have really helped me. I felt I was always very mobile, especially, on my feet. I could get around the ice pretty quick, so any less restriction I think would have helped me.
Interesting. For me, most definitely it would have been the pads. Obviously, I played with the old Lang skates. I don't know if you remember those old Lang skates.
See, I had I was using Bowers that were kind of similar to Nate's.
So they weren't too off.
Not too bad. They were no breaks in them. I enjoyed the ones that I had in that hockey card, the 3 breaks. Like I was always a big Coho guy, and
interesting.
But I did switch to Bauer by the end, which might have been why I had some hip issues. But because the style changed, and that's not a shot on Bauer. Please don't take that. I loved their equipment when I used it, but the style played. I remember the post protection. You went from VH to a reverse VH, which that's a whole other podcast. But even today, like I do feel like I'm a little bit behind in all the teaching and the not up to date as I should be.
Well, in the end, I guess the only thing you really need to know is it's our job to stop the puck. And I think you would probably would be the first to say that.
Listen, I tell our goalies all the time that most, I'd say 85% of the hockey world has no idea about your position, but everybody knows when they feel comfortable, when a goalie makes them feel comfortable in net. And like there's a lot that goes into it, your preparation, all the things you do off the ice. You don't realize how much your team gets confidence from you. So
100%. All right, as we start to wrap this up, Adam, father of 3, and we've chatted at the rink as you've been coming in. Your son has opted to strap on the pads. What advice?
He's retired from goalie. He's now a player.
He's now a player. Well, there you go. So player, goaltender at his young age and stage, what advice do you give him with all your considerable wisdom in the hockey world?
If you like hockey, I'll support whichever one you want to do. And, he did try goalie. I didn't love his reasoning at first. It's because they don't have to skate a lot. I said, no, they have to be very good skaters. We got him to a goalie school, and he enjoyed it for a year. But honestly, this team and the players have built such a relationship with my kids, and His name's William. He calls himself Sandus Will Manus now because he lost his first tooth, just like Sandus. So, and obviously Sandus is pretty good for us too. So, yeah, he's gotten the itch to play hockey, and yeah, it's been fun to see. A lot stressful for parents if your kid's in out, not in net. But yeah, I just trying to support him, and I'm happy that he's finding the itch to play hockey. He loves soccer, so.
Awesome. Well, we're going to wrap up. Your game, if you follow the podcast, your game is called This or That, okay? So, this or that. Leafs or Habs?
Leafs.
He's already scored big points. Drummer or singer?
Drummer.
Ah, that a boy. He's 2 for 2. Fast boat or fast car?
Car.
Any particular model?
Just feel safer on land.
Okay. Nice.
Ferrari. I've gotten into the F1. I'm a Ferrari guy now. I'd say that. My Italian heritage, and I like Leclerc. I like Lewis Hamilton's coming on. Let's say Ferrari.
Nice. Very cool. Steak or lobster?
Both. Surf and turf.
This or that, Adam. This or that.
Okay. Steak.
Okay. Big save or big goal?
Big goal.
That coming from GM/president perspective. Interesting. Okay. Looking at that through that lens as opposed to goalie lens. Okay. If you follow the podcast, you know what the final question is. Game 7, Memorial Cup. Adam Dennis is in control of the music in the dressing room. What song's playing or what genre's playing?
Is it maybe Renegade? Is that Styx?
Styx, yeah. Renegade, so classic rock.
Yeah, like Billy Madison, yeah.
Nice, I love it. Well, Adam, you definitely scored big in This or That. You are a rock star. We thank you for all that you do in our hockey community. You're very accessible, and just taking the time out of your busy schedule to meet with Chris and I and helping us get that logo up behind us. Keep up the great work, and we look forward to a really successful year with the battalion this year.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure to be on the podcast.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. A great, another great episode is in the books, and you know, some great insight talking about goaltending, and I think the great part that I really loved right in the first segment was when Adam talked about how much goaltending is connected to resiliency.
Well, and you know, resiliency as a goaltender resiliency, man, you just cannot be a goalie at a high level without understanding the concept of how to deal with failure and how to overcome adversity. It just can't happen. And you know what I've really enjoyed is kind of digging into the mindset of some of these elite athletes. And I'm really starting to believe, like, these guys, like Adam said, he was born with this stubbornness, this stubborn mindset that was going to push him through whatever. And I'm really starting to see, even though I work with athletes and really trying to help develop that mindset, a lot of these guys almost seem to be born with it, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, some of the stories too, beating Sidney Crosby in a Memorial Cup and all the challenges he had to overcome with, you know, hip injuries that eventually, you know, ended his career probably a little earlier than he would have liked. But, you know, deciding to make that tough choice from being in North America, playing in the minors, or going overseas, and, you know, said that it was one of the best decisions he made in his life was going over to Italy and Germany, and I think he played a little bit in Austria too, and played for the Italian national team, and he was actually injured and was unable to play in one season in the World Championships that would have let him play against Team Canada.
Yeah, and again, some really interesting historical data. The thing that really resonated me, I'm pretty sure the goalies that are developing here in North Bay under the battalion, I don't know how fortunate they are to have a guy like Adam Dennis, because he talked about...
you do know that they are very fortunate.
They're very fortunate, but I don't know if they totally get it, because when Adam was talking about how he uses those experiences to kind of help, you know, his coaches better understand the psyche of the goalie, right? And it's not a coincidence that under his tenure here, we've had some incredible goalies like Dom and now Mike McIver and Joe Verbetic, and Joe Verbetic goes back to some of your work with the Voodoos too, right?
Absolutely, and obviously Mike McIver is one we were pretty familiar with too, and we'll hopefully in future episodes get another up and coming battalion goalie in Charlie Larocque. So, anyways, this is episode 12. It seems like just yesterday. Actually, we started our first ever podcast was here before the OHL draft with Carson Ruddy and Logan Coates. Here we are, fast forward, we're 12 episodes. So we hope to keep going, and we hope you keep watching Goalie Resiliency.